Hello, my lovey, and welcome to Jour with Melissa Trumble and Karla Ukman. Today, the day before Election
Mhm.
Day in the United States, we're going to talk about how to handle that political anxiety. Welcome, Karla.
Hey, yeah, this is like super anxiety filled for myself, my daughter, like a whole bunch of us. So I am very thankful that we're doing a live today and to have you join me as well because you're going to help us with the anxiety. And then I'm also going to talk about the market because
Yeah.
people are very anxious about the market and how that performs during elections. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's highly interesting how like the personal anxiety fuels the market, like the actual market. You would think it's this monolithic entity. Okay, but we won't
Mhm.
distract. I'll give the anxiety hacks first. Okay. Down and dirty. If you listened to my podcasts about Stoic philosophy, which speaks to my heart, you will have remembered you've got the little circle and the big circle. The big circle, put all of your worries in that. You know, who's going to win this election? Who's going to pave that street? Are they going to fix the pothole? I like whatever. And then here's the little circle. And that is where you house the problems, the things, the issues that you can actually do something about. Spoiler alert, the thing you can mostly do about things you cannot control is in your head. You can redirect yourself, you can lighten the load, you can dive deep and wallow in the misery of what if the worst thing happens. But then you have to make sure and pull yourself back out and embrace some Pollyanna. Like, let's look at some positives. What if that doesn't happen? Because worrying about it isn't going to make it yes or no, or more intense or less intense or anything. That's just going to upset you. So, how do you want to live and embrace that you get to choose that? I know it sounds ridiculous if you're where I was 5, 10 years ago. It's like puff, puff, give, Mel. Like you can't just, I can't erase current events. Well, no,
Mhm.
that's true. We cannot. However, I can't do anything about who's launching what missile. I
Mhm.
can't do anything about what other Americans vote. What I can do, I already voted. I went and voted early. So I don't, it's supposed to be a record turnout. I don't want to wait in that line, So I went ahead and brought my little scooter because I had foot surgery and I scooted myself on into the building and did my thing a couple of weeks ago. So that's one trick, right? Big circle, little circle. I alluded to the next trick, which is fix your mindset, turn the channel. Whatever you're thinking about, your brain wants to do what you want it to do. It's our subconscious programming that hijacks everything. And it's just like lizard brain feels like getting all upset and worried because that's how our forebears stayed alive. All
Mhm.
right. So now it may feel as if we're going to die if the election doesn't go our way. However, spoiler alert. I mean, unless you're where they're having a violent protest, you're probably not going to,
Mhm.
right? And if you do, then you're gone and you don't have to worry about it anyway. I know, macabre. However, that's how I roll. Suicidal ideation expert, right? Yeah. But so really, really embrace the fact that you can't do nothing. You can do nothing about it. So let it go and be optimistic. And then whether you're going to stay up late or, maybe you're a night owl. Okay, great. They've counted all the votes by X, Y, or Z o'clock. Embrace it,
Mhm.
wallow in it. Imagine the worst things that happen. You are like tarred and feathered and kicked out of the village. Like what are you actually worried about? Truly identify it, wallow in it, and when that timer goes off, bye-bye.
Mhm.
Back to what if this can work out well? How can
Mhm.
I make my this is the inside, right? My little this is my parentheses around my brain. How can I make this a positive place while the world isn't behaving as I wish it were?
Mm.
So those are my hacks. Bam.
That's really good information. I appreciate you sharing all that because I know that I'm somebody that goes down rabbit holes a lot of times because I have anxiety and the older you get, the more your eyes are open to things, right?
Right.
And I was sharing this with Mel earlier. I'm going to be 40 in 10 days. And, you know, it's the older you get, you just feel differently. You grow, you've been growing, and it's a lot. And my daughter messaged me last week, and she's like, I can't handle this anxiety around the election. And this is her first election she's been able to vote in and participate in. And, you know, it's a lot. So I appreciate you sharing those tips, because I know my stomach has been in knots for quite some time. And so taking a step back and, you know, and realizing there's only so much that you can do, and taking control of yourself and how you think is the most important thing.
And may I also recommend, get curious. Okay.
Mhm.
Because the people who are voting opposite of you, or, you know, for the quote other team, and remember, othering is dangerous business. That's how they get soldiers to kill people. You know, if the quote other team is, you know, the people who are on that team, get curious. Why are they there? Can you understand why they might be? Right?
Mhm.
Is it a bodily autonomy issue? Is it a tax issue? Is
Mhm.
it, you know, and it might be, in your opinion, misguided, because you do think that your person has like the best sound tax plan, blah, 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 ad nauseum. Well, guess what? There are things that I believe no one could dissuade me from. I
Mhm.
inherently believe there is a snitch of good in every person, even the psychopaths. Okay. And I've read about it. Yes, I understand the dead eyes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I choose to believe that there is good in every human being.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
evidence to the contrary, you're never going to convince me otherwise. And
Mhm.
that's not scientifically able to be shown. There are people who completely lack empathy. They completely lack the ability to understand or care
Mhm.
when they cause others harm.
Mhm.
And
I think that's the hardest part is, uh, for me, it's like, I don't want to be surrounded by people that endorse harm,
yeah,
or, you know, and so it brings up a lot of anxiety, because it's like, you know, uh, if I'm surrounding myself by people that endorse certain things that
mm-hmm.
give me anxiety, then it just amplifies it. What I found, and I don't know if this is right, and I need you know, your professional opinion, because this is what, and advice, because this is what a lot of people do as well. They surround themselves with people that are like-minded, so the
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is less. That's
Sure.
what I've done for the past few years, and it's really helped my anxiety, because we're all talking about it, and
Mm-hmm.
we're walking each other through things, and it's been a lot more helpful, because my anxiety hasn't been as high this election as it was last election. I'm
Okay.
still anxiety filled, okay, but it's not like I'm throwing up or have an ulcer. uh,
And
we
and I,
also we also had COVID last.
yes, there was a lot going on last
There
time.
was, yeah, that
And
had a lot to do with it too. So do you find that that's helpful for people?
well, that can be a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
because when you're with the people who think as you do,
Mhm.
then you're going to suppose, okay, everyone on the other side endorses violence.
Mhm.
When in actuality, you know, like, everyone on the other side may not believe that the rhetoric for calling to violence, that the rhetoric about, you know, calling troops against citizens and putting political adversaries in prison, and oh, that's not really going to happen. He's just making a point. They're
Mhm.
just making a point. They're just, you know, and so if you're going to dismiss that part and
Mhm.
focus on the whatever it is, the part of the campaign that works for you,
Mhm.
whether you're pro business or, you know, whatever the typical, you know, if you're pro bodily autonomy or pro feminine rights or pro LGBTQIA plus rights, you know, then you're going to assume the worst, because that's what our lizard brain wants us to do to keep us safe. It
Mhm.
makes every fear a monster,
Mhm.
as opposed to, honestly, the more nuanced idea, because, like, I do believe in individual responsibility.
Mhm.
And I'll always vote human rights.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's a conundrum, right? Well, how are
Mm-hmm.
people supposed to have their autonomy and their personal responsibility if the state is helping them out? And I'm just like, I'm from Louisiana. I have known way too many people who could not do for themselves. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I appreciate that outlook. I think that it's a hard balance. It is a hard balance. And one thing that you said that struck me, it's the same way when it comes to money and the way that the economy or the market is working, and the tax code and all of that, because I
Yeah,
have conversations about that with my clients and other
bring
people
us
that,
into it. Yes.
yeah, it's I on this conversation, it doesn't matter what side, they always are bringing panic into the market and how it's going to affect your money during an election. And so I did a live on Friday. And so you can catch that on my page and rewatch it, but I'll talk a little bit about it now because I did share slides. I showed actual statistics going all the way back to the 1932 on
Mhm.
the elections and how the market had performed in election years. And there has only been 3 election years that the market has ended negative. 3.
That's wild. Think about it. These are periods of war, periods of peace, periods of recession. The 70s had a terrible recession, and we didn't even have enough gasoline for cars, regardless of how much they were going to charge for it.
And exactly. And so the 3 years that we were negative was 1940 because of World War II,
Hmm.
and we're recovering from the Great Depression. We had 2000, which was the tech bubble boom,
Hmm.
and then in 2008. And those
And
were
that
the
was the
only
housing market crash.
right. And so those are the only 3 election years that have ended negative.
Yeah.
So that's super important for people to understand that, and it didn't matter what political party is controlling
Hmm.
uh, and being elected either as president or other branches of the United States government. There is absolutely no correlation between what party is controlling which part and the markets.
That is fascinating. So let me ask you, I'm surprised that in 2020, year of the shutdowns and all of those things, that the market didn't take a dive after that. But I mean, it's not, to me, those don't sound like they are of everything we can, there's always a million causes for one effect. However, when there's something going on like, a fascist rising in Germany who's going to threaten the free world, that's something that's going to impact markets anyway. The recovery from the crash of the stock market crash of 29, all of these things are other factors involved. And I would say the housing crash, people like absolutely straight up losing their homes in droves because of the predatory mortgages that they had signed on to. I mean,
Mhm.
how much do you attribute to the election when you have all those other mitigating factors?
Right, exactly. But each side wants us to focus on the wrong things when it comes to the market. And what happens is, and I shared this slide as well, and this is the growth of the dollar from the S&P 500 since 1933
Mm-hmm.
all the way to present. And it has, the Arab oil exchange in there. It has the Cuban Missile Crisis in there, and it has all these things that you're talking about, COVID, and it shows the consistency of the dollar and the growth going up, and it even includes recessions, by the way, in this graph. And it just shares with us that there's obviously some turmoil that goes up and down in the market. You're never going to have consistent growth. But from 1933 all the way to now, it has gone up. That's the trajectory. It has gone up. And it also shows it does not matter who's been in office, because the market and who's elected do not have a correlation together.
That is fascinating. I love that information so much, because we also, lizard brain activity here, we tend to make things more important according to what we're focusing on. That's why rumination, going over and over and over something in your mind repeatedly can be so powerfully terrible, is because it makes something seem far more important than it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say apply that. I mean, logic doesn't really, anxiety and logic, they're kind of like oil and water. They just don't mix. However, if you can find a rational part of your brain when you're starting to get pity and your pulse is starting to kick in and that anxiety is just like, I got you now, sucker, then, try to apply that logic. And just be like, hang on. I remember hearing Karla Ukman say that the market doesn't have diddly squat to do with the elections. And breathe. And then change the channel and do those exercises, because honestly, what are you trying to prove? That if you suffer, that the world is going to be okay? That's not true.
Yeah.
The world's going to be what the world is. You can only direct your garden. A little tip of the head to Voltaire, because I'm fancy. Like you tend your own garden and you watch your own corner of the world.
Yeah. No, thank you for, walking us through this and giving us some ease that we can, and some exercises that we can do for the next 24, 48 hours. And for me, on the market side of things and your money side of things, this is why, the panic that happens when certain things go on in the world can create some negative impacts on your wealth building journey. And I'm here to share the truth so that you can build wealth and do it in an efficient way and not have all this noise coming at you.
That is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And if you need any help with mindset, please DM me, reach out to me, listen to my podcast. All kinds of tips and tricks. I'm happy to have a phone call with you. This is a stressful time, and I'm here with a foot I can't walk on. So believe me, I'm available. Thank you,
Thanks everyone for joining.